Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the School of Enchantment Wizard. If you like what we do here, please like, share, and subscribe. Please keep commenting. We love to interact with you guys. We love hearing your stories, your builds, your games you're playing, the characters you're using. It is great to hear what you guys are doing. It invigorates us and keeps us wanting to play. So you'll notice the background's a little different. We just moved, so it's going to be a little dicey for the next couple of videos, so please bear with me until we get finally officially set up. Without further ado, let's jump into the School of Enchantment Wizard. The School of Enchantment Wizard. This came out in the player's handbook, and it's probably been slept on pretty hard for most of the people's time playing. There's not a lot of excitement to it because I think it really goes under the radar what it can really do, and I think it perfectly sits in that sinister hero kind of world and fits also in that like dark kind of fae world that we've been discussing and doing videos about recently. There's a little bit of subtext that I really want to read for you guys so that way you guys can get an idea of where I'm going with this. As a member of the School of Enchantment, you have honed your ability to magically entrance and beguile other people and monsters. Some enchanters are peacemakers who bewitch the violent to lay down their arms and charm the cruel into showing mercy. Others are tyrants who magically bind the unwilling into their service. Most enchanters fall somewhere in between. This is a great setup. This gives you the ability to really understand the dangers of charm and what it can do, and it really leans into that build. Don't get me wrong, I get it, a lot of monsters, especially at high level, are immune to charm, and there's a lot of things that you can't do. I'd really talk to your DM because you really gotta understand where they fit as far as charm goes and things of that nature. A lot of it is reading through the definitions of it and really picking something that really fits into what you're trying to do and making sure that's clear. If you're playing with a DM that really doesn't understand how to do these things, it really doesn't work with charm very often and really feels like it's misused or misunderstood or kind of not as powerful as it could be, definitely don't use this subclass and pick something else that fits better. But if you're interested in playing a subclass or your DM is interested in working with charm, we're going to discuss a lot of that in this video. So please share some of the opinions that you see here in case that helps you broaden your own definitions of charm as well as what the DM's understandings are. So I've been mentioning charm and charmed condition a lot in the previous videos, and I feel like I really haven't given it a full description or understanding of what it really is. So first off, the condition charmed reads as follows. A charmed creature can attack the charmer or target the charmer with harmful abilities or magical effects. The charmer has advantage on any ability check to interact socially with the creature. Again, charm person is not dominate monster. You do not have full control over that person. A lot of the charmed effects do have other riders to it or do things that require the creature to be charmed, especially with high level spells that induce other ailments, incapacitate, and things like that. Understanding what this means. Okay, a lot of the times you can't actually just charm someone in combat because they have advantage on making a saving throw if they've taken damage. Understand that you can mitigate that by getting the charm off first, and that kind of alleviates that scenario. A lot of people traditionally use charm as a way to talk themselves out of a scenario, and that then affects us with they know you were charmed by them. I've discussed this in one of our other videos where I mentioned that as a NPC, how that affects me is very, very important. Again, if I'm not like a soldier or a general, maybe I'm not going to do anything about it and I'm just going to pretend like it never happened. Or maybe if I am like aggressive or I have a thing against magic users, I would go after somebody who charmed me just as a vendetta because I have the audacity of them to do so. But varying spells, especially in the enchantment school, affect charm very differently, and you really need to read those through. Using charm, it says you have advantage on social interactions with a charmed person. Yeah, persuasion, deception, intimidation is basically going to cover all of those things. And you do have advantage, which is great because it can work in your favor. Using spells in that manner, it works, especially if you're adventuring in not combat-oriented groups. Understand that if you're charming someone who's prone to violence, or it has a history of using violence, or is trained to use violence in order to achieve a goal, that is very reasonable of a request to make of them. Hey, don't let this person anywhere near me by any means necessary. It does not mean go out and kill them, but it does mean protect you, and that is a persuasion check, and that can mitigate a general or a soldier to protect you from other soldiers. Say, though these people are copies of your friends and they're not real, you have to stop them. That is another persuasion check that can get them to just stop them from attacking. They can grapple them, they can shield wall and just kind of push them away, and that's not necessarily violent, but it fits under something that the character would do. Playing a charmer, you have to think about it in a real world scenario to really get the full effect. You really have to be able to convince people to do things for you against their will and manipulate them. That's what you're doing with charm. You're taking away their free will to think in a particular way. And that can be very powerful, but you have to be a little creative to use it. A lot of DMs have issue with how spells like charm and illusions are affected in their game, because the more creative you are, the DM has to match that, or has to have a game plan to handle those scenarios. Otherwise, it causes those real bad scenarios where you might not know what you're doing because the DM just foiled everything, because they don't really work with illusions. That's not really how they build themselves, or they have difficulty on the spot understanding those scenarios. This is a very important thing to talk to your DM about. I don't think it's unreasonable that if you're a School of Enchantment wizard, that your charms can break through people that are immune to charm. I know it's a huge thing, and it's like, oh, you're changing whatever, but this is what your character's built around. Like being able to charm an elf or something like that, or being able to resist those things and make it a playing field in something that's as challenging to use creatively, and it is, as charm, I think is reasonable. Again, if your DM doesn't, that's fine, but it does create a vacuum because the enchantment wizard really falls short without it. And I don't want to start this video off and really get into it without discussing that first. At second level, you gain access to Enchantment Savant. This gives you the availability to copy spells into your spellbook for a reduced price and a reduced amount of time necessary to copy spells. This is all reduced by half. This is something that's a concept that people don't really understand exactly why it's there and the reasoning behind it. It's actually pretty simple. As a wizard, being able to copy any spell into your spell book really gives you the availability to have any spell possible. You don't really want to do that because you find yourself in a situation where, well, now I have every spell, how do I pick what I need for the day? And it's undue stress, and now your wizard can basically do everything. This is to help focus your wizard's build, your spells, and what that says about your wizard. Obviously, having a school is going to reduce the cost of that because it's your school. You're going to want to pick these spells over other spells because it should reflect on who your character is. Making your choice of what wizard school you belong to should be and should feel very important. This helps to reinforce that, and this helps to make sure that your wizards actually have a set kind of goal spell-wise, especially when they encounter spells throughout their adventures, because you're going to see things that are going to be like, well, I don't ever really want to use this, and it's a necromancy spell or an evocation spell or whatever. I don't really want that. It doesn't really fit with my build. Let me just not waste my time and money copying that. Again, a lot of this stuff happens during long rests, so it's not that big of a deal, but if you want to make sure that your wizards are really taking the time to focus on their points, enforce these rules really helps to keep that in play. Also, it keeps your wizards from being super rich and having all this money and just throwing it away on whatever they want, because money should be important as far as currency is controlled in your game, because if you're a wizard and you're walking around with like mountains of gold, like it really kind of sets off what's going on in the world, especially if you're playing a more role-play oriented game with a lot of political intrigue. Because if you can buy an entire army, it really offsets the balances of how the game works. Again, if you're not playing that kind of a game, then it's really not much of a factor. This is more of a ribbon ability to kind of keep you focused on what your school is. At 2nd level, you also gain access to Hypnotic Gaze. This is a very, very cool ability, and I really want people to really try and use this. It's at 2nd level, when you choose this school, your soft words and enchanting gaze can magically enthrall another creature. As an action, choose one creature that you can see within 5 feet of you. If the target can see or hear you, it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your wizard's spell save DC, or be charmed by you until the end of your next turn. The charmed creature's speed reduced to 0, and the creature is incapacitated and visibly dazed. On subsequent turns, you can use your action to maintain this effect, extending its duration until the end of your next turn. However, the effect ends if you move more than 5 feet away from the creature, and if the creature can neither see nor hear you, or if the creature takes damage. Once the effect ends, or if the creature succeeds on its initial saving throw against this effect, you can't use this feature on that creature again until you finish a long rest. Okay, there is a lot to unpack here. Immediately, everyone is going to tell you you're a wizard. You should never be within 5 feet of something because you're a wizard and you're probably going to get destroyed. That's a fact. It works. Here's the thing, though. There will be plenty of times when you are playing this game as a wizard, as someone in the back line, where someone will walk up to you and there is nothing you can do about it. It's real. It's something that you will face constantly. In that scenario, if it is just you, using this ability is a great asset, especially once you gain access to Misty Step, because this is not a spell. You can use bonus action spells to get away, to do whatever it is necessary. This, if you catch it, that creature is done. If you're fighting a large creature and a couple of other minions, and you happen to have a team capable, you can disable the large threat easily. And there's nothing they can do about it. If they fail that DC, it is over until you let them go. Understand what this really is. If you ever watched Aladdin, the Disney film, and you saw when Jafar used his staff and then the Sultan just got like all confused and basically stood there with his eyes spiraling out, not knowing what to do, just agreeing with whatever Jafar said until he let it go. And then he said, okay, great, and then kept going. That's really what this spell kind of is. It's that like real snake charmer moment, that Jungle Book moment when you know, the snake grabs Mowgli and just stares into it and the eyes start going all weird and then it can't move. That's what this is. Here's why a lot of people don't use it. It consumes an action, and it is your action on subsequent turns in order to maintain this. I get it. You're a wizard. You want to use your action to cast spells. Here's the thing. It's not a concentration. You can grab Flaming Sphere and use your bonus action and just keep ping-ponging it wherever you want it to go and smashing into other enemies. You can have other concentration spells going at this time, especially ones that you can manipulate and move around into different areas. There's a lot of ways you can do a lot of different things. If you grab Spiritual Weapon, you can use that on subsequent turns as your bonus action the entire time. If you have some summons that need bonus actions to move around, or disability spells like that would disable someone, that if you did an additional bonus action, it could do something else or continue it from going. Anything like that can still be in play while you're doing this. So you're not shut down if you're smart enough to situate yourself. I'd take the risk if I'm already in that area, because you might save someone's life. You might be able to go up to a character that's about to die on your team and save their life with this ability. and that's it. It is done. That character is free. This enemy is locked into you. Think about what this means in social scenarios. If there's one person there, say you went to go meet like an important figure, and they sent their guards away to talk to you privately, and they threatened you. Popping this ability is not the worst thing you can do, especially if there's a situation where there's other information to be gathered. You want to shut down a bad guy and ruin your DM's game? Wait till you meet an important figure, Hypnotic Gaze, hold it. Hold it until your party ransacks everything in that room, steals everything out of their pockets, everything out of their desk, every piece of paper with information on it. Armor, gear, as long as you do not hurt them, they cannot move. You can take swords, shields, armor off of someone and they're stuck. As long as you keep doing this over and over again. You have rogues in your party, game over, you stole everything from the king. Like, you can do great things. This is one of those abilities where you need to know who you're working with and you need to know your spells. Pick spells that require bonus actions that can do additional damage. At higher levels, grab those spells and keep them going. Cast the concentration, run that in, or do your spell attempt first, and then if it doesn't work, Misty Step out. You have options and availabilities to do this spell and keep yourself outside of harm's way, but if something comes close to you, you might as well give it a go, because there's no limit to how many times you can use this. You just can't use it on the same person twice. At 6th level, you gain access to Instinctive Charm. This is a very interesting technique. You gain the ability to divert the attack of an enemy. The text reads, when a creature you can see within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll against you, you can use your reaction to divert the attack, provided that another creature is within the attack's range. The attacker must make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the attacker must target the creature that is closest to it, not including you or itself. If multiple creatures are closest, the attacker chooses which one. On a successful save, you can't use this feature on the attacker again until you finish a long rest. You must use this feature before knowing whether the attack hits or misses. Creatures that can't be charmed are immune to this effect. Again, a couple of things to unpack here, and what's important to understand is that the attacker has to do something that is not an AoE spell, an area of effect spell, because it has to make an attack roll against you. The attacker then has to switch that attack to a target that is closest to it if it fails your spell save DC. Okay, alright, you gotta get hit with an attack roll. Plenty of things can hit you with an attack roll. It works when it works, and it doesn't when it doesn't. This is one of those scenarios. But one of the things that's really important is if a creature is immune to charm, it will not affect that creature. Again, this is one of those scenarios where earlier I said, I could see being an enchantment wizard going through immunity to charm or resistance to charm. This really shouldn't be that case. This should be the exception that makes the rule true, because there is no limit to how many times you can use this. The only limit is you can't use it on the same creature multiple times, just once per long rest. But if you're surrounded by 4 goblins and they all attack you, you can use your reaction on one turn, make a goblin attack another goblin, use your reaction on another turn, make another goblin use that reaction on someone else, and keep going further down the line. Every time you get targeted with an attack, you can divert that attack with this. That is very strong. Definitely something you want to go over with your DM, especially in consideration of charmed creatures or availability and what that means in your campaign. What are you fighting? Are you fighting a lot of Fae? Are you fighting a lot of elves for whatever reason? Or are you fighting mostly like undead? Or are you fighting fiends and like celestials or regular people, monsters, goblins? Like, really know your campaign, really talk to your DM. It's really frustrating to have this great ability and never be able to use it because you're always fighting something that's immune to charm. It's powerful. It really, really is. If you get hit with something strong that's an attack roll, you throw that out there as soon as it happens, it can make a huge difference. What if that roll ended up being a crit and you just dodged it and ended up saving your life? Like, that's huge. That's a big moment because you're a wizard. And at 6th level, you're pretty dangerous. You have access to a lot of big spells and you're only going to get stronger from this point. Anything that can make you dodge an attack is very important because, again, no armor, very low HP is going to be your standpoint. So danger is something very, very important to you, and mitigating that is incredible. And you get this at level 6. Very cool of an ability, I think. I think a lot of the times, most of the things you're going to be fighting at this point, and for a little bit while longer, is still going to be able to be charmed. So bear that in mind and really take the chance. I mean, you're going to get hit constantly. What are the chances it's not going to happen? Again, also important to note, on a successful save, you can't use this feature on the attacker again until you finish a long rest. So that is important. You can't keep doing that to the same creature. I know I mentioned that earlier. It's really important to mention that so that way people don't get caught or lost, especially in bigger combats with larger enemies. At 10th level, you gain access to Split Enchantment. When you cast an enchantment spell of 1st level or higher that targets only one creature, you can have it target a second creature. This is very interesting. At 10th level, you have a lot of spells at your hand that you can cast willy-nilly. A lot of the 1st level spells now become really not important to you because you're really not going to use them because cantrips are doing more damage. Really, there's very few situations where you'll need most of these spells, especially if they're not rituals. That being said, lower level enchantment spells, people that often will just kind of toss to the wind. But some spells, they differ in their value when you get to cast it on 2 things as opposed to 1. Charm Person on 2 things for a level 1 cast, very useful, especially since you're an enchantment wizard. That should be your forte. You should really be using that whenever you get the opportunity to, because why fear anything? You're a wizard. Why not cause these beings to be susceptible to your charms and your whims when the only risk is that they know you use magic on them? But if you tell them that just because your power is so renowned that people believe every time you speak to them that they are suffered from the charmed condition, and then, you know what, that's a lie, but you have advantage on that, and that's something that they discuss with you when they were charmed. Because they'll notice they were charmed, and then they'll go and kind of try and deduce what just happened, and they'll start from the beginning. And that will be something that they really would have to overcome mentally and really kind of deviate from that. Again, charisma really isn't very hard for you because you're a wizard. You probably didn't put a lot into that, but you already have advantage. So that really mitigates some of it. You really don't need as much charisma as you might think because you have advantage on charmed once you cast the spell. And that's really what this class is. Use the spell, enforce the charm. Everything else will fall into place because you've used magic to enhance your abilities. Now, one thing that's really important to note is a spell that you really guides how you should see spells once you get Split Enchantment for enchantment spells. Crown of Madness. Everybody hates the spell, nobody uses it, everybody thinks it works really wonky, and it shouldn't work out that way. Here's the reason why Crown of Madness makes you make your attack before moving. It's supposed to be crazy. You're supposed to attack and jump around. Yes, they can make a save at the end of their turn. This is why it's great with Split Enchantment. First and foremost, wherever they are when you first cast the spell on them is going to cause the action. So, if they're next to other groups, that's when you attack. The positioning of the enemy is the most important part of when you cast Crown of Madness. First off, you want to get them in a good position that's close to your enemies. Yes, close to your enemies. And this is why. Monsters very rarely run past anything. Getting them to run their maximum move speed into and out of range of your melee combatants is why this exists. You want them to attack whoever's closest to you, that's your enemy, and then cause them to run in and out. So your barbarians, your rogues, your fighters, your paladins all can take reaction attacks for them. The opportunity strike is your bread and butter when you have Crown of Madness. Understand, sneak attack is based on the turn of the rogue. So if a rogue takes a reaction to do an opportunity attack not on their turn, they are viable to get sneak attack. If you have a paladin, they can use a smart. If you have a barbarian, they want to hit it no matter what. And if you have a fighter, they can also do so as well. Rangers, monks, whatever it is, they can add their abilities on these reactions. That's what makes Crown of Madness a usable spell. Most people think it's completely useless. It really isn't, especially when you're willing to have these scenarios occur. Wait till the enemy gets close, run it back and forth. If you can do that and cause it to not attack any of your party members for 2 rounds, it'll probably be dead. Taken off the board. And if you can do that to 2 enemies, that is insane. Also understand what that looks like. You're a wizard in a back line, and you just inducing madness into your enemies and watching them act crazy, running rampant back and forth, attacking their own people when it can. And just plummeting and wasting so much of their excursions. I do understand that doing so would mean that your party cannot take other reactions. How often is your party taking reactions? Realistically seeing that, unless you have a Spores Druid, reactions is one of those things that are very circumstantial. Yes, if the rogue gets hit, Uncanny Dodge is a very big deal. Depending on whatever else you're using, reactions can be viable. It is up to the other player, but if you can get 1 or 2 opportunity strikes out of this, that is a very, very big turnaround for your combat. It really sets things off as far as action, amount of actions your party can take by increasing it, because they're now all using their reactions on subsequent turns if you position it right. That's why split enchantment is great, because you get availability to do things like that. I know I'm going to butcher this, but Ralthu's Psychic Lance is an enchantment spell. You can launch that at 2 different people. Tasha's Mind Whip, enchantment. You can throw that on 2 different people. There's a lot of great spells that are out there that now you can do so without spending an additional resource. This is twin spell on enchantments, but no sorcery point cost. At 14th level, you gain access to the final School of Enchantment Wizard ability, Alter Memories. You gain the ability to make a creature unaware of your magical influence on it. When you cast an enchantment spell to charm 1 or more creatures, you can alter one creature's understanding so that it remains unaware of being charmed. Additionally, once before the spell expires, you can use your action to try and make the chosen creature forget some of the time it's spent charmed. The creature must succeed on an intelligence saving throw against your wizard's spell save DC, or lose a number of hours of its memory equal to 1 plus your charisma modifier. You can make the creature forget less time, and the amount of time can exceed the time of your enchantment spell, whatever the duration is, an hour, whatever. Understand that this is definitely a role-playing ability. Why it's 14th level is because it really greatly affects what's going on. Put a charm on. Change the event that's going on. Talk to someone important. Charm them. Force them to do something. Give you a signature. Give you authorization to do so. Written. something that they can do. Maybe if they're another high level wizard or something, have them cast sending to send a message to change the altering scenario that's going on. Force them to do something crazy and then make them forget why they did it. This is a political intrigue goldmine. If you're playing a RP heavy game, this is wild. This is that Feywild ability. If you walked in, knew you went to a party, and then came back and was just like, I don't know where I've been for like 16 months. Like, it is crazy what kind of effect that can have on NPCs in your game. Don't use this on your party members, obviously. That's a recipe for disaster. But friendly people to your group, if you're an evil character and you have ambitions and you need to talk to a warlord to give you authorization to send their army halfway around the world so they're unprotected, talk to them. Have them write it out. Reasonable. And then have them forget what happened and proceed on their previous plan. And then get their whole regime slaughtered. You can do great things with this by having people forget what they gave you authorization to. That is very deadly. If you've infiltrated an organization that's very powerful, very like Illuminati-esque, talk to one of the leaders. Get proof of them trying to sabotage the others, even though it's not true, and you might have convinced them it was just a prank. And now the organization is going to start to consume itself from within. You can do great things in role-playing oriented games because of this ability, and it's powerful in those worlds. It is flat out powerful in those worlds. In a combat-oriented game, not so much. In a combat-oriented game where you're doing mostly dungeons and things like that, and it's very straightforward, like beat the bad guy kind of a deal, I'd talk to your DM and I'd really consider switching this for Instinctive Charm. And the reason why I say that is Instinctive Charm is very powerful in that kind of a scenario where you can regularly dodge these things. And Alter Memories would really affect you better early on in the game where you don't have access to greater spells. Again, it's kind of a long shot. I get a lot of DMs really wouldn't go for that. But it's also a very difficult mechanic to maintain, even for seasoned players charmed in dealing with that. So making it easier is a real big appeal, and it really changes the landscape of how your game is going to go. It is very easy to be very evil when you're charming people because you're taking away their rationality. You're taking away their reasoning for not doing things and for keeping things safe and following their normal protocol of life. You're taking that away and bending it to your will. Not forcibly bending it. Not at this point. Well, at 14th level, yeah, probably. You are probably dominating people. And that does leave lasting effects, which is awesome. If you ever get to use Dominate Person or Dominate Monster, it's great when it works. It is a fun thing to do. It is a scary thing to do, especially if you take it outside of combat and into role-playing scenarios. And in combat, it is great. That being said, really, really focus on bigger picture once you get Alter Memories. Because it's free will to run something past somebody and erase their mind and walk away and pretend like it didn't happen. Try something crazy and go, you know what, this is my erase button. This is, oops, we screwed up real bad. Let's take that back for a little bit. It works. It's great. It's an exciting thing, and it gives you a lot of play for really changing the world. And at 14th level, you're on the scope of warping reality with your abilities anyway. So you're getting really close to being able to conceive doing things that are wild and out of this world. And really think about what you can do. If you charm someone for an hour and then erase that whole hour for their life, what could you do to them? How far can you go? What scenario are they going to wake up in? Especially when you can teleport. You can send them anywhere. You can do almost anything. And all they have to do is go, yeah, I'll go with you. Sure. Yeah, I don't mind wasting 20 minutes to follow you to wherever it is you're going. That's all right. We're friends. That seems very reasonable. And now you teleported somebody to the wrong side of the world and left them there. and just walk them an hour away so they don't know where they are. Scary things can be done. Terrifying things can be done. It's fun to play with minds. Our final thoughts. I know this video is very long, so I'm going to try and keep this to a minimum. Charm is a very difficult thing to maintain. It is definitely something I would not say a newer player should be toying with unless you specifically want a challenge. That being said, there's a couple of things you need to be great with Charm. First and foremost, you need a DM that is understanding of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to use Charm. It is devastating to a DM's campaign if you can charm your way through every scenario. You change the way NPCs react to you. You change the way characters that are very important to the game react to you. It's not dominate person until you get dominate person. But if you dominate someone and cause them to go and attack something else, in an hour, all you have to do is send a warlord to reach his people and say, hey, we're changing plans. We're marching this way. Move right now. And watch everyone else go berserk trying to leave and just hold them there. Now you have a warlord by himself. Like, you can really affect how the game plays out and the stories the way it's told. DMs using Charm on players is devastating. But understand that it can change and derail a campaign for a DM. So really, you have to talk to a DM and make sure they're cool with your availability to do so. Understand, if it never works on big bads, but it works on everything else in between, you are very scary to nobles, to people of powers, to fiends, celestials, whatever you can get Charm on. You're dangerous to them. You make them do things that they don't want to do. And you don't have to make them do whatever you want. You have to give them plausible reasons to do things you want. And it's very simple, because what do you want most of the time? Protect me. You're my friend. My friend would protect me. My friend wouldn't fight an army, but my friend absolutely would hold the door closed while people tried to bash it in for me. And then once it opened, just, step aside. Being an Iron Wall, know that the NPCs you have in your campaign would react based on their personalities. Make sure you iron those things out. Charming a soldier or a gladiator or a monster that's bred just to fight. Fighting is its nature. Fighting is what it does. Fighting is very reasonable for them. They'd fight for anything, some of these people. Having them fight for you works. It makes sense. I get it. I understand why it's dangerous. I understand why it's too much a lot of the time. But a killer for hire, you're going to tell them, hey, I'll give you double your normal rate. Kill that guy if he goes anywhere near me. Isn't going to work. And a lot of that is really important to iron out with your DM. You need a DM that's cool with doing new things. And you need to be confident in doing something crazy. It might not work all the time. And you have the best fallback plan because you're a wizard. You have an incredible spell list. You have incredible availability to learn spells that aren't from your spell list because you can just write them down in your book. You're a full caster. You are one of the best casters. All of it comes down to whether or not you're going to really dive into this thing with both feet. And I really hope you do, because there's cool stuff that you can do with it. And if it doesn't work out exactly the way, working with your DM and having an incredible fallback plan of being a wizard is a pretty good deal. That being said, time to bring this video to a close. I know it's very long. I'm very sorry. But if you've made it this far, thank you so much for giving a spooky kid a chance.